Hello, everyone. We're back with another episode of our podcast. I am Danny.
And I'm Abhignyana, and we are going to be your host for today.
Today, we have with us Mr. Ehsaan Noorani of the legendary trio Shankar-Ehsaan-Loy, who are known for their famous compositions like Kal Ho Na Ho and Dil Chahta Hai. Mr. Noorani is the recipient of the most coveted awards for music composition in the Indian film industry, and also he's a Fender guitar endorsee. Thank you, sir, for joining us. We're huge fans of your music.
Thank you very much.
So, sir, we'd like to begin by asking you about how do you see music being consumed and enjoyed abroad as compared to in India?
Well, the thing is, in India, I guess the film industry is the main platform and the main media for music out here. I mean, though there is indie music and all that, but it's naturally a lot smaller. Whereas in the West, I mean, everything except India, the film industry is not about music. It's more about, I mean, of course, background music and that kind of stuff, but not about each film being a musical like it is in India. So that would be the main thing, which is why, I mean, abroad you've got pop stars, rock stars, and none of them really compose music for film. The people who compose music for film are completely different, like, John Williams and, the kind of people who do background music for films, so that is the big difference. So, I mean, in America and England, wherever, Europe, there's so many other genres of music which has, which is popular. Jazz, rock, whatever you want to name, electronic. So that is the big difference.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is, I guess, something which has been asked a couple of times. So it's like we've heard that you've begun music for quite some time. You've begun it from a young age. So what are the little and it was kind of sweet for you. So there always are little things that act as hurdles. So what was it for you that may or may not be a hurdle, but that you thought was a challenge to you growing up?
The thing is, the challenge of being a professional musician in India itself is the biggest hurdle. It's not like anywhere else in the world. I mean, where there's like I said, it's either the film industry or there's nothing. I mean, there was a nightclub and stuff at one time, but even that's not there anymore. But whereas, if you're abroad, you'd be able to, either play clubs, you'd be able to do studio. There's a lot more options. Here the only choice is the industry, or you also became a studio musician, doing jingles and that kind of stuff. So that was the biggest hurdle for me, was to, like to be part of this industry more than anything mentally. I mean, in the sense that, you've gone and studied music abroad and stuff like that, and then you wonder what you're supposed to do. But luckily for me, I got the right breaks. I became a studio guitar player. I started working with all the big, composers of commercials and all of that. And then got into composing music for commercials and all myself, which I still do. And so on and so forth. And then, kind of built up, and, we got eventually into film industry.
Okay, so sir, like you mentioned in the response to the first question, that in abroad, let's say for America, music is being consumed region-wise, right? Like if you talk about hip hop, then the origin can be found in New York and all that. So do we have any of this sort in India? Like let's say, for example, in the Northeast, rock music has been quite popular. And what have you noticed over the years in your career of music?
Actually, strangely, the thing is that, I mean, one would expect that the local music would be like very popular, that you'd expect that in Shillong and Meghalaya, Khasi and, the Garo kind of music and all would be popular. But unfortunately, it's not. I mean, it is very, very localized, and it's not like, they have huge hits which are in their own language, but they'll be singing stuff which is like, rock and pop and that kind of thing. So regionally, I mean, I guess the strongest influence of any music as far as regions is concerned in India is in Punjab. The Punjabi music scene is very, very big. They've got their own industry, which is not dependent on the film industry. They have their own stars who are Punjabi singers, and they do big gigs and they make a lot of money, and they've got like videos and albums out, and well produced, maybe produced by people from abroad. So that's one place where there's a very strong industry. The rest of the places, be it whether it's, West Bengal or, the Telugu industry or the Tamil industry, it's all tied in with film, more or less. I mean, of course, there's the classical and stuff like, but that's like a really small kind of audience that, buys that kind of music. Whereas, I mean, surprisingly, because the Northeast has got so many, of their own kinds of styles of music, I mean, whether it's in Mizoram or whether it's in Nagaland or whether it's in Meghalaya, but those are still kind of limited to their own folk, their own folk kind of things, and, used mainly for cultural events and stuff like that. But in Mizoram, I see that a lot of people do the music in their own language. They have a lot of Mizo kind of stars who do, their own Mizo rock or Mizo pop or whatever. But then again, sometimes there's an influence of like, there's a whole influence of Korean pop, which is very, very strong in the Northeast, with a lot, especially in Nagaland and Mizoram. So, it's all like a mishmash, but I think region-wise, the strongest influence of music I've seen region-wise is in Punjab.
So, according to your bio, you started your music education in MI in the year 1985 to 86. So that means you have over 30 years of experience in music till date.
Yeah.
So you must have seen a lot of changes in the music industry as a whole.
Right.
So what are the most significant changes you have noticed over these years, and how do you see?
Sorry.
Yes, sir. And then how do you see the present scenario, whether it's in global or in India?
Well, actually, the thing is that as far as the change in the music industry is concerned, I mean, when I was growing up, when I was in college, there was a lot of concerts that happened all the time, live concerts with bands like, rock bands and stuff like that, which is why, bands like Indiscreet and, also called Rock Machine at one time, those guys became very popular because there was a lot of shows. There were a lot of shows, there were a lot of venues to perform. And unfortunately, those all have shut down now because of, whatever pressures, after the riots and the bomb blasts and everything kind of went haywire. That is one thing. The film industry has developed quite differently in terms of the music. The music is pretty interesting. I mean, at least, and I think that partly we were responsible for it with the music of Dil Chahta Hai, which really changed the complete scene in Bollywood. So that is constantly evolving. You're hearing a lot of naturally Western influences, in the music, but in terms of production, you see a lot of progression happening there. A lot of influences naturally from abroad, which are like hip hop and R&B and stuff like that, all kinds of dance, EDM, which is present in Bollywood. In that way, I guess Bollywood is pretty interesting because there's a lot of different kinds of styles of music that you can do. I mean, we introduced rock into Bollywood with Rock On, and so it's been interesting that way. The change is pretty good globally. The change has also been, I mean, globally, I think hip hop and pop have kind of taken over the film industry. Rock has taken a complete backseat, whereas, the rock movement went on right into the 2000s, with grunge and, alternative music like Pearl Jam and Nirvana and all that, who made it really big. But then after that, it's kind of fizzled out. And I think also one big thing which is very responsible for that is the internet, the free consumption of music, where even the music companies and all that say that, they want to go for that kind of music that actually brings the most income. So I think that would be pop and hip hop, at least internationally. So that is one thing. I hope to see a resurgence of, more progressive styles of music like rock and stuff like that.
Sir, going back to an earlier question that you answered, you spoke about the influence of culture or lack thereof in Bollywood especially. So how did, what do you think can revive getting culture back into the local music industry? As you said, you spoke about Mizos and Telugu people. Danny is Mizo and I am Telugu.
Oh, yeah?
So,
okay, wow, okay.
So, we know individually folk arts and we know about the predominant music industry. How do we create an amalgamation of both of them?
Well, actually, the thing is that I guess the main thing would be the indie music industry, which is the non-film industry, which I must say in a way is pretty popular in Nagaland and Mizoram, because the Indian film industry is not so deep-rooted in those places. I believe certain states like Arunachal and all, the Indian films and all are very popular. but I'm not very sure about Nagaland and not at all sure about Mizoram, because I mean, I don't know too many artists from there. I know a few, but I've never really got down to talking to them about it. So the thing would be that to promote music outside of Bollywood, which actually in the 80s and all was very big, what you call indie pop, which was very, very popular. People like Alisha Chinay and Ki Ali and all, who had actually made it very big. You know. And I'm sure the same thing could happen, but it needs somebody to see a vision. The thing is that most of the record companies and all are very difficult to suffer from tunnel vision, that this is what we have to do, this is what will make the most money, and that is it. It's not about a responsibility towards your audiences that, you know, we want to introduce other kinds of music in it, which they won't, because once there's money involved, you know, everything else goes out of the door, you know. So that is a problem. That is one big problem. You know, I think it'll take vision on someone's part to say that I'm going to promote this kind of music, where television channels will play that music. I mean, of course, YouTube and all these people are there, but the thing is that where is the promotion? You know, you can't even if you put something out on the internet, it requires a lot of push behind it for people to get. And then there's a lot of responsibility on the artist himself to create communities online, you know, on Instagram, on social media, on you know, Spotify. So that takes a lot, and there's a lot of hard work that goes behind it. And now it's mainly up to the artist to do that, as opposed to a record company to do that. Yeah.
So another question, I guess somewhere along the same lines. So you suggested about how someone needs to take a step and have that vision to do it. So and independent music scene, given the current trying times and the scenario, people are trying to learn, explore, and explore their own genres and styles of music. So and Spotify is doing a really good job of talking to people and putting out their music. But in some ways that is not enough yet. So what are your views on what else can be done, especially keeping COVID in context?
I lost you for a second. Your voice kind of went off.
So my question was what do you suggest as to what can be done for it, keeping COVID in context, given people and artists have time to explore it?
The thing is, like I said, you know, one of the most important things to be doing at this time is community building, because you have to build your community. I mean, and make sure that your networking is fine so that the music can get out to people all over the world. I mean, you know, my Instagram following is actually developed during this lockdown, and you know, I mean, of course, there's all the Bollywood people who follow my music, but now I'm seeing people from abroad, musicians and all, also following the videos that I put, the instruction things that I do. So, you know, and a lot of them follow my live. I didn't even know that. I only found out later that when I do these Instagram lives, even they watch it, you know. So there's a lot of that kind of networking that you have to do, and it's a lot of hard work. I mean, all these guys, you know, I know so many because of my live thing which I've been doing on Instagram. I've met so many artists, and a lot of them, they're working really, really hard to put their music out there and make sure that people are listening to it, make sure that they're reaching out to people, you know. So it's a lot of hard work, and you know, it needs people. I mean, I know a couple from the Northeast, like there's a fantastic singer from Dimapur. His name is Abdon Mek, and he does some really good music, and he's trying very hard to network and, you know, get his following so that people can listen to it. But, you know, it takes a lot of input. It's almost like a full-time job. You've got to wake up and get onto it immediately, you know. I mean, so are people willing to do that? Some people are, I guess, you know, but some people are just like kind of laid back and saying, no, we just want to put our music out there and see what happens. So it doesn't work that way. You've got to be really on it. You know, it's like a full-time job.
Yes, sir. So
at one time, the job was only making music. Now the job is making music and marketing it yourself.
yes, sir, that's so true. So adding on to that point, so we have a situation here. So before the internet came, most of the music was distributed through these strict channels of record labels.
Yeah.
But in this present day and age, no one really is in need of record labels anymore, right? So we have Spotify, we have DistroKids, we have YouTube. So, but then on the other side, the market has become more busier than ever.
Right.
So what matters at the end is, like you said, building a community. So let's say if I am a blues player, how do I connect more with my audience, and how do I identify my target audience, my right target audience, and how do I position myself in?
Well, the right kind of hashtags, the right kind of push on recommendations from other people, even a little heads up. I mean, I do it very often. Like some friends of mine, from the community, they release music, and of course, which I like, and only if I like it. I've shared it on Instagram. There's a very good government organization in Nagaland called TAFMA, which I don't know if you've heard of, TAFMA. I don't know what it stands for, but it's basically it's funding the arts and promoting the arts. I share their posts as well, because I think it's very important for people to know that an organization like that exists. So I keep doing that. There's a band from Mizoram, what is it called, the Aurora Records. Have you heard of them?
Yes, sir, they're my friends.
Yeah, I love their music. I even put their music out on my story. So the thing is, it's very important to do that kind of networking. And the point is, I know that celebrities are kind of busy and they won't pay attention, but if done the right way, I'm pretty sure that you can get that. I mean, the thing is, I see with the music labels, I guess the advantage is that they've got lots of following, like people, especially YouTube. I mean, you see a label like T Series, you're at least assured that your video will get, even if it's not film music, you're assured that it will get at least 500,000 to 600,000 views, and then carry on. But then you have to bow down to what the record label tells you to do, and you're completely tied down. And I don't think musicians today want that to happen. So, but the point is that if you're turning on music on your own, you have to then keep a very strong quality control in mind to know that it's up to the mark. So that is an important thing. So yeah, like I said, it's a lot of hard work, and once you do that, moving on to the record label, creating your community, you're pretty assured that at least your music will get a good audience. Beyond that, in terms of monetary things, I mean, that I won't comment about, because Spotify and all that, I know that the numbers have to be huge for you to see any income.
So since we're veering into the direction of promotion or marketing of music on social media and other platforms, so, you spoke about how you share really good music, and other famous personalities also do that. But there is also this situation where there is a lot of good music, and the good music, just one good music amongst the sea of others. It's lost in the process.
That's true.
A lot out there, and one person cannot just sit and listen to the 1,000 versions that are there to pick out something that is good.
Yeah.
So how does one approach when having a situation like that?
Well, that's a really tough situation, because I know there's so much material out there, and there's so much new material coming out every day that you can't really keep up with everything. But yeah, I mean, it's a really tough one to answer, because the point is, like, every day when you put on iTunes or you put on Spotify and you check like the new music or the indie music releases, I mean, there's bunches of them coming out. But it's very tough for me to answer that question, because there's so much which depends on luck, so much that depends on many other factors. I mean, and it's not here; it's all over the world that people, good people are releasing music and it's not being heard. And then suddenly you hear it, a friend says, "Oh man, I got this album, check it out." And you hear it and say, "My God, this album is something like I've never heard before. This album should really be doing well." But it's not, because the thing is that there's still the power of the record companies behind, like there's an Ariana Grande release, or there's a, whoever else, pop stars, Katy Perry's album. It'll be so ramped up that it will hide everything else. So that is there.
Danny, would you like to ask
Yes.
a question?
Yes, sir. Yes, I was waiting for your big name. So sorry. Let's delve a little bit into the non-technical part of the industry. So I follow you on Instagram. watch your Instagram live, and then I've seen your Instagram tutorials as well. So I would like to know more about the Fender bender behind the sensational Bollywood music star you are, and the story behind how the Fender endorsement came into light.
Well, actually, I've always been, like very into Fender guitars. I mean, like which guitar player isn't actually? And as it happened is that the people from Fender had visited India. Uh, this gentleman called John Gold and there was Sean, who was his partner. Both of them had come, and basically we met up in Delhi, and I took them around. We visited the different dealers and the shops and whatnot. And I kept talking to them about Fender guitars, and then as we went to the different places and attended a couple of performances and all, they saw how popular I was. That I mean, that I was pretty well known in the music circles. Because I mean, naturally they don't know because they're from the USA and stuff like that. So as soon as they went back, they first just offered me a guitar, a custom built guitar, which I would like, just as a symbol of gratitude for doing everything that I was doing for the brand in India. And that kind of developed into making a signature line guitar. And they said that we would like to sign you on. And but the point is that we decided that we'd go for a cheaper model of Fender, which is Squire, which is made in China, and basically so that people could afford it, because the other guitars would be way too expensive if it was like under the Fender USA brand or Fender Mexico. Those would be very expensive. So we decided to do it under Fender Squire, and it basically did very well. We sold 3 lots of it, and then they discontinued that entire Squire artist program all over the world. There were quite a few guitar players from all over the world who were signed on. Somebody from Thailand, somebody from Malaysia, me. So basically, they completely called the program off as a result, which now the guitar is discontinued. But I still get inquiries for it all the time that we want to get the guitar. Where do we get it from?
Yes, sir. So continuing the conversation with the guitar. So if we look at 20, 30 years back, the industry was dominated by few brands, let's say a monopoly or an oligopoly of Fender, Les Paul, Ibanez, and then, yeah. But then in the 21st century, we see new brands coming up like Kiesel, Sir, and all this, and the craftsmanship has really, really improved.
Of course.
So do you think we have any chance as in India to really delve into this and to come up with our own guitar brands which can really, really make an impact?
Actually, you'll be surprised actually, but there's a lot of guitar brands even which are available abroad, like like Dean Zielinski, the guy who made Dean guitars originally. His guitars are all manufactured in India and then re-exported to America and then finished out there. A lot of the manufacturing happens here. A lot of Jackson guitars are made in India, and so I mean, there's a lot of that happening. But there are a couple of shops, a couple of boutique guitar makers. Like there's Bigfoot Guitars, which is based out of Goa. It's a guy called Karan Singh. His guitars are advertised all over the world, and they're really high quality acoustic guitars. And electric guitar wise, there are not too many people who make it, because see, it's a lot of investment and stuff like that, where if somebody can put in the money and make sure that you can get a certain amount of returns. Like there's a gentleman who lives in Auroville in near Pondicherry. His name is Ehsaan Noorani. He's half Bengali and Swedish. And he makes electric guitars, which are lovely, which a lot of people from all over India use. But like you order one guitar, it'll take a year to come, So it's not something that he can do on a commercial basis, where he can make, like mass produced guitars. So that takes a lot of investment, and, it's a lot of risk, especially in this country, in terms of how it'll do. But I'm sure if somebody actually tries, it maybe would work, something which is really good quality. Right now, all the other dealers, like, the shops and all who sell their own brand of acoustic guitars and electric guitars, most of them are made in China or Korea, under their own name. A different kind of brand name, like, whatever, Pluto acoustic guitars, which are made in China. So that is the whole thing. I mean, in India, one would like to see that. But like in the US and all, yeah, I mean, a lot of these boutique brands have become very big, like Sir and Tom Anderson and these guys. They're all very, very big. Kiesel. Kiesel actually used to be another brand called Carvin. Carvin then branched out into Kiesel, and so they took on new guitar builders and they went in for this completely modern kind of style of building guitars. And there's a couple of really good guitar makers in Nepal. There's Sahana guitars and there's ST custom guitars, which are really world-class electric guitars, which can stand up to any guitar anywhere in the world. But they are again small shops. It takes like 6-8 months to order one guitar, and so they make like maybe 4 or 5 guitars a month.
Okay, sir. So for someone like me, so I'm a vocalist and I know bits of guitar, but there are other people out there who know only one instrument or vocals and that instrument or something. So how does someone get from that into a zone where they are capable of understanding and appreciating, and furthermore, as in how do they get into the whole thing? For example, you've turned into a music director, but you began as a guitarist.
Yeah.
Receive formal education, but most people do not. They probably receive only in one particular instrument at the maximum.
Right.
How does the journey happen from one instrument to the whole understanding?
Well, actually, it all depends on your base. I mean, if you want to just be a guitar player and play, guitar music, that's fine too. But I was very interested in composition. So I got into composing and I found that I had a flair for it. And then being a musician, being a guitar player or whatever, that only helps the composition. And even if you're just a singer, I think it's very important for you to learn an instrument, whether it's piano, or whether it's keyboard, or whether it's guitar, because one feeds off the other. One will help the other. Your vocals will help your music, and your instrument, and your instrument will help you play with your vocals and your songwriting. I mean, it's good for any vocalist to write their own songs. And so that is a very important thing. I think one does rub off the other because it gives you a much wider look at the music. It opens out your horizons, in terms of music, and not just being limited to vocals or limited to one style of music. Yeah.
So, sir, adding on to that question, so let's assume there is this person who wants to get into proper composition. So eventually they've learned to write their own songs and they can play their own songs, sing with an instrument. But composing into a full-fledged production needs a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So how does one go and how does one approach to adding various things, or approaching people, or just doing?
Well, actually, the thing is, I think the easiest thing to do would to get somebody to produce your music for you. Once you've composed it, and under your supervision, actually, because it's your song. But unless you can do that yourself, you've got a flair for it yourself, you've got a computer, and you can program. I mean, there are ways they made it easier by ready-made loops and using GarageBand and whatnot. But yet, if you want to really get creative, you have to move out of that comfort zone, in which case it's better to work with somebody who's a producer, and because they've got knowledge and they've got the access and the technology to do a lot more.
So, sir, again, in continuation, I guess in bits of continuation with that.
Yeah.
So, Bandish Abandons was your recent release. So, Bandish Abandons is very classically oriented.
Yeah.
I guess you were not exactly from you did not begin from Indian classical roots. So, how did this whole composition happen, and the whole process? How was it?
See, the thing is that, of course, I don't have any classical background, but then Shankar-Mahadevan does. He's the classical singer. He's so good. And so, of course, a lot of the work he did, because, it's very easy for him to compose Bandish and to compose Thumris and, that kind of stuff. There's no problem. Of course, we were involved in it in terms of the composition and whatnot. And there are a lot of songs which are like a fusion between Western and Indian, where we were more involved. So it was a different kind of process, and I was very glad to see that it became popular in a place where remixes and all had become popular. To suddenly have a album which is primarily Indian classical to become, popular. It was on the iTunes charts for many weeks. A full album, which was a really good sign. Songs like Love Pe Aayi and Garaj Garaj, but really it become big. And I think that's a beautiful sign. And it's gone out to many people naturally because of being on an OTT platform. So a lot of people have watched it, and it's very heartening to know that it got received so well. Yeah, the music was very difficult in making because there's a lot of deliverables you have to. There are different kinds of things that you have to do in terms of a person rehearsing the music, a person creating the music, then the perfect person performing the music. So there's a lot of pieces of music that we had to record. But it was fun. It was fun. It was very different for anything that we had done. So it was a learning experience for us as well.
So, sir, you spoke about Shankar, sir. So that reminded me about your trio. So, I guess this is a combined question about how was your trio formed? As in, how did you? Obviously, many groups in bombs band and disband more often than not. So, how did you find that balance between all the three of you, and how can it transition? And how do people find that for themselves?
See, the thing is that it's a lot of hard work keeping a partnership together. There's a lot of ups and downs, and I won't say that we've been completely devoid of ups and downs in our career. At times when we've had fights, there have been disagreements, not only creatively but many other things. But you have to ask yourself, what is it? What is the reason that you're in it for? Why are you there creating music? Because you love music, and the music is very popular. We are very popular. Would you want to let that go? No. So then keep all the problems behind, leave them behind, sort them out if possible, and just go ahead and do the music and be there for the music, and that's it. That's the only thing that you got to leave your egos behind at home, and then work towards creating a good product. That's it. And I think that applies for any kind of partnership, whether it's business or whether it's music.
Yeah, makes sense, sir. Sir, one last question. I guess this is the most standard question of all. What is your advice to new age musicians out there? Something that they should stick by?
Well, actually, few things is that, keep yourself on the cutting edge of music in terms of trying to do something that's different. It's very easy to do what everybody else is doing, but then in fact, there's more chances of you getting lost in the crowd when you're just doing something like that. And the thing is that it's an education process. There's a lot to learn from what is happening anew and a lot to learn from what's happened before. Starting from classical music all the way down to all kinds, whether it's blues, jazz, rhythm and blues. Listen to all that music and, learn from it, because that will give you a big foundation. That whole foundation is there, and you shouldn't ignore it just because it's not popular anymore. Which is quite silly, which is the thing where is an advantage that I have is because I like all that kind of music, whether it's pop or whether it's, so that way. So I think that is very important. So you keep yourself at the cutting edge and keep yourself educated and constantly educating yourself with music every day.
Thanks a lot, sir. I guess we come to the end of our questionnaire. Thank you for sparing your time and indulging in our questions.
No.
And teaching a lot to our listeners. To the listeners out there, you can find Mr. Noorani on his website and his social media pages, whose links we shall provide soon. Yeah, that's it. Bye-bye.
Cool.
Thank
Thanks
you
a
so
lot.
much,
So
sir.